He's a little bit country. He's a little bit rock and roll. He's a little bit polka, death metal, abstract jazz, and German industrial techno. He's Scott Leffler.
Hey, that's me.
He's not allowed near the stereo at parties.
True story, bro. Good evening, ladies, gents, children of all ages. I am your host. My name is Scott Leffler, and here's the thing. This is the show, and we're going to do this for the next hour or so. I have a lot of fun planned for you tonight. First of all, we got a couple things that we're going to talk about to lead the show off, some politics things, of course. Then our interview. Now, we have been interviewing contributors to All Western New York. Last week, of course, we had Joe Kent, also known as Think So Joe, the host of the Think So Joe show. We've also had Ryan and Dennis. We've had Mike. We've had, pretty much the contributors to All Western New York Radio have all taken their time. And so we got them out of the way. Starting tonight, we move on to more newsy interviews, if you will. And tonight's guest is Michael Caputo, who you may have seen on the news. You may have seen him on CNN. He's actually on CNN a lot. Anyway, he's coming up in about 15 minutes or so. We're going to talk to him for about 15 minutes or so. Actually, his time is short tonight because after he's done with the interview, he's got to head down to D.C. To be interviewed by the U.S. Senate. So I do appreciate his time, but it is a little short. But we're going to talk to him. We're also going to talk, like I said, politics. And then to wrap up the show, because the interview with Mike is going to be shorter than usual, I actually have 3 bird war stories for you this week. One of them is from one of them is from England, and 2 of them are from New Jersey. So there are 3 bird war stories, and they're all from the past couple days. I keep telling you the bird war, it's a thing, and it gets bigger, it gets better, not better, it gets worse, it gets uglier. Anyway, these stories, all very interesting. We're going to share them. But first, what a long year this week has been. And it's only Monday. So, 2018 is, I've mentioned this before, there's going to be like an asterisk next to it in the record books to indicate that this wasn't a regular year. A porn star is suing the president. The right wing of the country is mad at a comedian. And yet, everything just seems normal. Somehow or another, that just seems like another day. There was a time in our nation's history when this would have seemed like the most absurd thing possible. Someone could have written the script, and everyone would go, no one would believe that. That's not even plausible. How could that possibly be? And yet, here it is, April 30th, 2018, and we've got a porn star suing the President of the United States. This just broke this afternoon. Maybe it was late this morning, but I saw it this afternoon. Stormy Daniels files defamation lawsuit against Trump. Now, this is a CNN story, and I'm going to read it for you. President Donald Trump's chief provocateur has struck again, this time with a lawsuit alleging defamation of adult film star Stormy Daniels, in what appeared to be an effort to keep her case at the center of the news after a delay in a related case in California. Daniels' lawyer, Michael Avenatti, my favorite person ever, by the way, filed a new lawsuit on Daniels' behalf on Monday, today. The suit charges that Trump attempted to tarnish her reputation and credibility by dismissing her account and subsequent description of a man who threatened her in 2011, at a time when she was considering whether to reveal her alleged affair with Trump. The lawsuit filed Monday by Daniels, whose real name is Stephanie Clifford, in federal court in New York, targets Trump's tweet on April 18th, dismissing a composite sketch of a man who the adult film star says threatened her over her alleged affair with Trump more than a decade ago. In that tweet, Trump called the composite sketch a total con job. The lawsuit says Daniels suffered damages in excess of $75,000. Now, I didn't realize that Donald Trump's tweets had dollar amounts to them, but apparently if he says something really bad, you can sue him for a specific dollar amount, or at least that's what this lawsuit alleges. By calling the incident a con job, Mr. Trump's statement would be understood to state that Ms. Clifford was fabricating the crime and the existence of the assailant, both of which are prohibited under New York law, as well as the law of numerous other states, Avenatti wrote in the lawsuit. It was apparent that Mr. Trump meant to convey that Ms. Clifford is a liar, someone who should not be trusted, that her claims about the threatening encounter are false, and that she was falsely accusing the individual depicted in the sketch of committing a crime where no crime had been committed. Mr. Trump made his statement either knowing it was false, had serious doubts about the truth of his statement, or made the statement with reckless disregard for truth or falsity. Now, it is really interesting that Stormy Daniels, Stephanie Clifford's, says that she was threatened in 2011, and Donald Trump says, no, you weren't. Like, how does he know she wasn't threatened? That part does seem really weird. But anyway, moving on. The suit is separate from another lawsuit in which Daniels is suing Trump's personal attorney, Michael Cohen, over the legality of a 2016 hush agreement in which she was paid $130,000 to keep quiet about the alleged affair with Trump. The president, who's also a defendant in that lawsuit, has denied any sexual encounter between the two. Daniels has also sued Cohen for defamation. When asked about why it was necessary to file defamation suits in two different legal jurisdictions, Avenatti told CNN that it wasn't by accident, and that he decided to file a separate defamation suit against Trump on Monday in New York. He declined, however, to explain the thinking behind the strategy. I'm not at liberty to get into that, but it wasn't by accident, he said in a telephone interview Monday afternoon. Avenatti said the suggestion that Daniels' latest case is a media ploy is absolutely baseless, absurd, moronic, and ridiculous. We did not force the president to issue this defamatory tweet, Avenatti said, referring to Trump's tweet on April 18th. We stated immediately after it was issued that we were going to be bringing this claim either in the LA case or in a separate matter, and that's exactly what we've done. A California judge last week halted Daniels' lawsuit against Cohen for 90 days while a criminal investigation of him moves forward in New York. Avenatti has said they plan to file an appeal. So a porn star is suing the President of the United States for defamation of character. A porn star is saying that the president defamed her character. I just want to throw that out there. I want to make sure that we're all well and clear. Now, topic number 2. Well, we're talking about defaming characters. This was all the talk, and I'll tell you my opinion on this. But first, let me catch you up, just in case somehow or another you've been hiding in a cave. The White House Correspondents Association dinner was Saturday night. This is an annual event held in D.C., and basically the White House correspondents, people who cover the White House, people who cover, big-time politics, they have an annual dinner. And there's always a speaker of some sort. And in recent years, the speaker has gotten more risque, I guess. It used to be that they would have, a fairly low-rent speaker, like, the housing secretary would talk or something. And then they started to get, bigger names, comedians, that sort of thing. I know Colbert's done it. Well, this year, the keynote, the comedian, if you will, is Michelle Wolf, who is from from Comedy Central. She's a Daily Show correspondent. Anyway, she basically took the opportunity to roast the president, as well as other members of his administration. Now, this isn't designed necessarily as a roast, although it has been done before. That said, usually the president is sitting there, next to the comedian. Now, Donald Trump skipped it last year, and he skipped it this year. The last president to skip the White House Correspondents Association dinner was Ronald Reagan, and the only reason he skipped it is because he was recovering from an assassination attempt in the hospital. And he called in from the hospital to the dinner. All right? George H.W. Bush went every year. Bill Clinton went every year. George W. Bush went every year. Barack Obama went every year. Now, George W. Bush and Barack Obama both had incredible senses of humor, and They made fun of themselves at the correspondence dinner. Of course, the comedians made fun of them as well. But there's a difference between gentle jabs and roasting, in my opinion. I'm not a huge fan of roasts. I don't like mean humor. I thought what Michelle Wolf did bordered on and then actually crossed over mean. I didn't like her brand of humor. I didn't find it funny. Now, again, in case you're hiding under a rock, basically, she did like a 20-minute bit in which she made fun of a bunch of things. She talked about the fact that the president wasn't rich, which I guess is like the worst thing you could possibly say about the president. She said some things about Kellyanne Conway, but it's really when she was focused on Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who was sitting next to her, that things kind of got ugly. She very blatantly called Sarah Sanders a liar, which, let's be honest, she is. And I think that just sort of stepped over a line, though. I don't think people were comfortable with that. There was a meanness to the humor that a lot of people didn't like. She then made a comment about Sarah Sanders' not eyeliner, but like her eyeshadow. And a lot of people are really, really, really upset about that. For some reason or another, you can't say bad things about a woman's looks or something. I'm not really sure what the rule is, but people didn't like that. Now, I didn't have a problem with any one thing. I just felt that overall it was mean, and I didn't think that it needed to be mean. Now, Republicans, not all Republicans, obviously, and actually, when Mike's on, I'll ask him about it. But many Republicans, especially those on Twitter, are very upset. They felt that it was a line too far to cross. Apparently, you can't say mean things about people. Unless, of course, you're Donald Trump. And this is... So, look, I don't like how Michelle Wolf did this. I didn't think it was funny. I thought she could have done so much better. I just don't like mean humor. But it's America. She did what she did. Now, I'm not calling for her head. I don't want her fired from anything. I do think that the White House Correspondents Association should look into how they do these dinners in the future. Maybe play it a little more safe. I don't know. You don't want... If you cover the White House, you don't want the White House Correspondents Association to be the topic of the news the day following the dinner. Or at least you shouldn't. But it is today. Basically because Michelle Wolf was kind of nasty. And I didn't care for it. Now, a lot of people are saying, oh, well, she needs to be fired and blah, blah, blah. A lot of people are really, really, really upset about it. In fact, there's a tweet that I found earlier today from somebody named Chiz. On Twitter, they're at Chizmaga, ChizMaga. And it says, if Michelle Wolf and the media's attack on the lovely Sarah Huckabee Sanders last night wasn't enough to get you off your ass and vote Republican in November, I don't know what would be. Imagine if that was your daughter sitting up there last night. Shameful. Hashtag WHCD, which, of course, stands for White House Correspondents Center. All right, so, dude, the shit that Donald Trump has said over the years, the shit that Donald Trump has said over the last month, probably the shit that Donald Trump has said today, there is some serious fucking moral relativism going on in the MAGA crowd. Because anything that Donald Trump says is fine. Oh, it's locker room talk. Or he was kidding. Or whatever. He's just saying it how it is. But if anybody other than Donald Trump, and especially anyone of a liberal persuasion, says something, then the world is falling apart. And could you imagine if it was your daughter sitting up there last night? Again, I didn't like the humor. But if you're going to call a spade, call all spades spades. Otherwise, just acknowledge that you're a fucking shill. So this Chizmaga with their train and their flags is just a shill. I'm so sick of people and their moral relativism. I'm so sick of people and their hypocrisy. I don't know. It annoys the hell out of me. Again, I didn't like it. I thought it went over a line. But if that goes over a line, so does grab them by the pussy. That also goes over a line. It steps way over the fucking line, and then it lights the line on fire. But that was fine to this crowd. Annoyed. Very annoyed. So, we've got a porn star suing the president, and the right wing is mad at a comedian. We're caught up? I think we're pretty much caught up. All right, I'm going to take a quick break. When I come back, we'll get Mike Caputo on the line, joining us by phone from East Aurora, and we'll talk with him about, well, all right, so we're going to talk about, he's got this legal defense fund. We're going to talk about that. We'll talk about the whole Russia investigation, or investigations, if you will, and whatever else comes up. I don't know. But we're going to have a lot of fun. Don't go away. I'll be right back. You're listening to Here's the Thing on All Western New York Radio. I'm Scott Leffler. Don't go away.
Ladies and gentlemen, today, the role of Scott Leffler will be played by...
Your mom!
All right, joining us now is Michael Caputo. That Michael Caputo, the guy from Western New York, who you see all the time on CNN, reading the newspapers, and you may have just recently seen that he's... someone has started a fundraiser for Mike to raise some money for essentially legal bills or finances caused by legal issues, because Mike has to go back and forth between Western New York, where he lives with his family, and Washington, D.C., where he talks to random politicians who ask him random questions about Donald Trump and Russia. Mike, I got that pretty much right in a nutshell there, right?
Yeah, that's pretty correct right there.
All right, so Mike, what I've seen is that you're currently facing 6 figures in terms of legal bills due to the ongoing investigations, because there's, of course, more than one. There's the Mueller investigation, which I don't believe you're actually a part of yet. Is that correct?
Not yet, but I fully expect to be. There's also 2 different Senate investigations and 1 House investigation. The House investigation, I testified before them in July of 2017. That investigation is now concluded, but my lawyers have been negotiating with the Senate for quite some time, and I could be in for up to 4 appearances in the United States Senate.
Am I correct in seeing that you're supposed to appear before one of the Senate committees tomorrow?
Right. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock in Washington, D.C., I'll sit with the staff members of the Senate Intelligence Committee for an interview, which then will lead to me being invited to say the exact same things all over again in front of the senators who are members of the committee, if the staff thinks it's important enough.
Now, it's always nice to get invitations from, members of Congress, representatives and senators. The problem is that those invitations are really compulsory and at your own expense. This is the main. Is your main cost travel and lodging, I would assume?
Oh, actually, every single one of these hearings, if you have the proper legal representation, costs about $25,000 all told. And that's if you come in with attorneys who aren't Washington attorneys who specialize in this. If you live in Washington and have hired a highly qualified attorney to represent you through this process, you can pay $30,000 or $40,000 per hearing. And of course, the Mueller investigation, that's a criminal investigation. It's not a mere hearing. Legal representation through that process, whether you're a witness, a subject, or a target, that itself can get into 6 figures. So I actually expect to be at a minimum about $125,000 in legal fees, and it could end up far more than that.
Who's your lawyer? Who's representing you?
In Buffalo, New York, we're really blessed with a lot of great lawyers on both sides of the aisle. I've hired Dennis Vaco of Lippis Mathis. Dennis is uniquely qualified for this kind of white-collar criminal investigations. He was United States Attorney in Western New York, and later served as Attorney General of New York State. You don't always have that kind of talent in a town the size of Buffalo, but we do. We're lucky, and luckily for me, he also charges Buffalo prices, not Washington prices. So I get really highly qualified legal representation at less of a cost than my colleagues in Washington who are enduring the same kind of legal fees.
Now, Mike, you have, as you mentioned, you've appeared before the House, 2 different Senate committees, and you do expect to, at some point or another, talk to the Mueller investigative team. Do you have is there an end game for you, or is your goal to just get through it as best you can?
Well, all of my appearances are voluntary. I have yet to receive a subpoena. If I go before Mueller and then I'm asked to go before the grand jury, I'll volunteer for that too. My role here has always been kind of marginal, but I've always been determined to be as helpful as I can, because I'd like to see the president cleared and his campaign cleared of these allegations of Russian collusion. So far, it's been working well in that direction. I think in the end, the president and his campaign will be completely cleared. But the problem I have is it's redundant. I'm saying the same thing to several different investigations. In the case of the Senate, I have to tell the Senate aides first, and then they invite me to say the exact same things to the senators. And yet I clearly, if you look at any of my testimony, you would see that I know nothing. The problem is none of these people share the testimony that they get. My testimony to the House is not being shared with the Senate. And while I believe the Mueller investigation probably has my House testimony, and they'll get my Senate testimony too, the Mueller team, that's a criminal investigation, and they're required to go ahead and get you under oath no matter what you said to the Congress. It is just it's a fishing expedition. It's one I don't appreciate. I'm very disappointed in the way this is going, but as an American, I feel it's my job to volunteer, and there's absolutely no way, even just as a witness, I would go before these people without proper representation.
To the best of your knowledge, you are just a witness, correct? You're not a person of interest or any of those other legal terms.
Well, I've learned more about this process than I ever really wanted to know. But in the parlance of a special counsel, you're either a witness, a subject, or a target. A target is someone they'd like to bring charges against. A subject is someone who likely has evidence that will be useful to bring charges against the target. And a witness is someone who is there, they're trying to figure out what they might know, and a witness could be escalated to a subject fairly quickly if they do have, let's say, for example, an email that is suspicious to the special counsel. I sit today as a witness. I hope that it remains that way. When I go before the special counsel, they'll decide whether or not I have to go to the grand jury. That's an additional expense and of course, an additionally difficult venue to testify in. But it's not clear whether I'll end up in front of the grand jury or not.
Now, how was your time before the House committee? Because I understand, just from what I've seen on the news, of course, that committee was very contentious, if you will. Well,
the House committee, Republicans and Democrats don't get along. And it was very clear between the congressmen and staff in the room and my July 2017 hearing with the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence that they didn't get along even in smaller rooms like the one we were in. And they carped each other a bit during, back and forth. And, we went on for nigh on 4.5 hours. And in a lot of ways, they asked me the same questions over and over again. And the Republicans would ask the Democrats to stop repeating themselves, and the Democrats would ask the Republicans to stop interrupting. It was like sitting at a Thanksgiving dinner with a family that just doesn't get along. But it was a long, drawn-out fishing expedition, and unfortunately, from the document production and the questions that I'm answering now for the Senate and others, it really hasn't moved on much. I think I'm going to get the same exact questions again in front of the Senate Republicans and Democrats tomorrow morning.
Now, for those of you who don't know, Mike, of course, worked on the Trump campaign, previously worked on Jack Kemp's presidential run, He was Carl Palladino's campaign manager some years back, and then going back quite a ways, you worked for Boris Yeltsin's election efforts in Russia, and I imagine that's the sticking point in your career, which is why they're so interested in you. Correct?
Yeah, I'm probably the only person in the whole list of witnesses and subjects and targets who knows all the players. I mean, I know Donald Trump, I know Vladimir Putin, I know Paul Manafort, I know Roger Stone. I know all the people who are being whose names are being bandied about, and that has always been interesting for me all my life, kind of in a Forrest Gump sense of the word. But this is like Forrest Gump gets investigated. I know these people, but I know Putin from the 90s. I know Donald Trump, but I wasn't around for any of this, the Don Jr. meetings or things like that when I had left the campaign by those days. But, it makes me interesting. I think it also makes it difficult to conclude an investigation without checking my tiny little box way out on the margin. And unfortunately for me and my family and for my children, that's going to cost us about $125,000 for nothing.
I checked the GoFundMe this morning. Looks like it's just shy of $10,000 at the moment. This was not a campaign that you started, but you are, of course, happy to get the help. Is that, I assume?
I am there. It was started by Ralph Larigo, who's the godfather of one of my daughters, and a lot of friends who put together kind of a host committee. David Bellavia, who's an Iraq war hero, and David DiPietro, who is the assemblyman from East Aurora, where I live, and a very dear friend of mine. They're hoping to raise money from small donations, any size donations. Anybody who feels that it's not fair for a family from East Aurora to withstand $125,000 worth of legal fees on a bogus investigation about nothing is welcome to donate. They've also set up a trust fund, an account that, and I can't touch either of these things, but the account is there to try to attract higher dollar donations from businessmen and others who I've worked with in the past. I'm hoping we can raise the $125,000. People have been tremendously generous. My wife and I are very thankful for it. But I'll tell you, these legal costs keep going up, and every single day is a challenge.
Now, Mike, at this point, do you regret the time you spent working with Yeltsin?
Oh, no, I don't regret the time I spent working with Yeltsin, the 7 years that I lived in Moscow. It's some of the most interesting years of my life, and I'm writing about them. And it's really, it led me to meet my wife and to have my children. I'm absolutely happy about the time I spent in Russia. I'm not very happy about the time I spent with President Trump. That appears to be what got me in the crosshairs here. If I hadn't worked on the Trump campaign, I'd be peacefully walking the earth like Kane and Kung Fu here in East Aurora, New York. But instead, I get to go dancing back and forth to Washington, spending money hand over fist, money we don't have. I mean, $125,000, Scott, that is more money than we make in a year.
Yeah.
And, it has driven our family wild because I'm also back and forth so much. The stress level is pretty high. We get a lot of death threats and threats against our safety because it's a pretty – oh, yeah. I mean, last month somebody sent my wife a part of a sniper rifle in the mail. It's the vitriol between the Republicans and the Democrats has gotten so high where people aren't – not only are they not being decent to each other anymore, they're making death threats against families with toddlers. Yeah, and it's just gone way too far.
That's a bit much. Mike, I obviously, you and I differ politically, but you've always treated me decently. I've tried to do the same to you. I do definitely note that there are people out there on both sides. Now, I personally think it's more your side than my side. You probably think it's more my side than your side. But there is there's ugly out there. And I have no idea what to do about it.
Well, it's both sides, and I think it's the rhetoric heating up every single day. It doesn't seem to slow down. I think, of course, it has something to do with the kind of campaign that was run and the kind of, president that we have. The president loves to have the volume and the heat turned up, and that, ends up and people getting hurt. People raising their voices on both sides, and to me, I don't know how we get past it. To be honest with you, though, I'm just trying to get my family past it. That's why we put up CaputoLegalFund.com. If anybody feels inclined, you can go there and check it out. I appreciate your point of view, Scott. I always listen to other people. I think part of the problem we have, Scott, is that people just aren't listening to each other anymore.
Right. Well, it's difficult to listen when you spend your time screaming,
It's true.
There's a lot of screaming out there.
I'm guilty of it myself at times. It's tough to resist the vitriol, but I've never seen the other side of it like I have right now, and I regret that quite a bit.
Happy belated birthday, by the way.
Thank you very much.
It was like a week ago or something, right?
Yeah. I'm trying to forget them nowadays.
You and Matt Margulis have the same birthday, which just shocked the heck out of me. I didn't realize my two conservative friends on Facebook have the same birthday. I thought that was really odd. Now, to be fair, I've never seen the two of you in the same place, so I don't know.
We could be the same person.
You could.
He is a very handsome man.
Hey, speaking of vitriol, everybody's talking about the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Any thoughts on that? Personally, I thought it was a little bit beyond the line, but this seems to be where we're at now.
It is, and I think it's a symptom. I don't think it's the disease. I'll tell you, that dinner has always been a risk. When I lived in Washington, I attended it several times. The comedians have every single year gone closer and closer to the line of propriety, and sometimes they step over, sometimes they don't. But here's the thing, though. If you go and you sit at the head table at that dinner and you're in the administration that they're feting, you're probably going to get beat up. And the one thing that I didn't find the jokes funny. I think they pushed the edge of the envelope a little bit too much. But what I think is really quite interesting is the people who are carrying this the loudest, who are complaining the loudest, are the reporters themselves, like John Carl of ABC, who's the chairman of the White House Correspondents Association. He has called out the comedian for being way too over the top. So I'm kind of sitting here eating popcorn, watching the media take after her because, as a Republican who's, in the fray, that dinner is fraught with peril. So if you didn't come with your body armor on, you didn't take it seriously.
Yeah, without a doubt. Mike, I had another question for you, and now I forget what the heck it was, but it was incredibly important, and I lost it. But I really do appreciate you coming on and talking with me today. You and I go back quite a while. Do you remember, like, a decade ago asking me for podcasting help?
I do, yeah. I actually started doing some podcasting for a while. I just ran out of time. You were way ahead of your time on this thing. Now everybody and their brother's got a podcast.
Yeah, well, it's funny. We should start a podcast is the new we should start a band, apparently.
It truly is. It's like my daddy's got a barn, let's have a show.
Yeah, I don't have any talent in either of those things, so, I just do what I do. Mike, I appreciate your time. Caputo Legal Defense Fund, is that it?
That's it. CaputoLegalDefenseFund.com. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll check in with you again sometime. Thanks, Mike.
Take care now.
Right.
Bye now.
Ladies and gentlemen, today the role of Scott Leffler will be played by Millard Fillmore.
Welcome back to Here's the Thing. I'm your host. My name is Scott Leffler, and we're going to wrap up the show, as we always do, with some news from the bird war. Now, the bird war, if you are new to the show, here's the thing. Birds hate us for our freedom, and our Nikes, and French fries. Maybe our cars. I'm not really sure why the birds hate us, but they hate us. And every single day in the news, there are stories upon stories upon stories of things that the birds do to express their hatred, is really the only way I can, there's really no other way to put it. So today, because we had the shortened interview with Mike Caputo, by the way, thank you so much to Mike for doing that. And I know he's going to be in front of the Senate tomorrow, and probably going to be asked some much more difficult questions than I asked him, because I pretty much just, asked things that I was interested in. Although I did, I just remember the other question I was going to ask him. All right, well, I'll ask him another time. Hey, Mike, your Twitter account, Michael R. Caputo. I noticed that it's not online. Did you take that offline, or did Twitter take it down? Because I've seen both stated, that you took it down and that Twitter took it down, and I really meant to ask you about that, and I completely forgot. So if you're listening, do me a favor and shoot me a message via Facebook, and I will try to get your answer on the air before we go off the air in 20 minutes or so. So I've got a few stories from the bird war. One takes place in the UK, where a lot of bird war stories seem to take place. Two take place in New Jersey. Now, that's kind of interesting. We're going to start on the other side of the pond in the UK, and this story is from the dailymail.com. Now, this story is about a Rhea. I think it's pronounced Rhea. Maybe it's Rhea, R-H-E-A. Headline says, really scary, R-H-E-A-L-L-Y, scary. Mother has to defend herself with a shovel after she's attacked by a giant bird that can disembowel a person. This written by Stuart Patterson, and it was published on the 26th. This is the moment a woman uses a shovel to fend off a giant bird that can disembowel a person. Heather Waddington, age 47, was forced to use the garden tool and even a bale of hay in a bid to shoo the female Rhea away as it chased her around its pen. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar, as I was, by the way, a Rhea kind of looks like an emu or an ostrich. It's a very large bird. It's not a bird that I would mess with. At one point, she even grabs the animal's neck in a bid to thwart its feathery onslaught as her friend films the bizarre altercation. Love that, by the way. There's the friend with the camera just watching this bird, about to kill her friend, and it's like, oh, hey, let me make sure I get this on video. The huge bird viciously bit, scratched, and tried to kick Miss Waddington as she attempted to corner it into a pen on her sister's farm in Helmshore, Lancashire. Miss Waddington from Baxenden, Lancashire, said, when I saw the bird coming after me, I shit myself. I honestly thought I would be kicked. It was running so fast and I had to get away from it, there was no way I was giving up. I had to get it behind the gate. It would have kept going and going at me. Miss Waddington eventually sought refuge in another pen, swapping the shovel for hay to distract the bird as she tried to rejoin her sister on the other side of the yard. But the bird rushed to attack again, and Miss Waddington only just making it out of the gate in time to stop the Rhea coming after her. Her sister Jackie Johnson and friend Lauren Cheatham laughed at the hilarious battle as they captured the mother's attack on camera. Again, bird attacking a woman, trying to kill her. Her sister and her friend are like, ha, that's hilarious. I love it when birds kill people. Now look, I love when dinosaurs eat people in movies. I don't love it when birds kill people in actuality. But this bird's trying to kill this woman, and her friends are like, oh, look, they don't even get it. They don't get it. Ladies and gentlemen, the bird war, it's real. They're trying to kill us. They hate us for our freedom. The trio had crossed the yard to see a sick goat on the other side when the battle with the Rhea began. Miss Waddington said, my brother-in-law is 6'6" and absolutely enormous and gets attacked every single day. I was a bit weak because I was at the tail end of the flu, so it was a bit of a challenge to get through. It took my breath away. I didn't think it was funny at the time, but I laughed my head off when I saw the video. It's absolutely hilarious. In other words, she's like, I didn't think it was funny when I thought I was going to die, but after I didn't die, I saw the humor in it. I can get that, I suppose. Miss Waddington, who is a dog walker, said it's springtime and the Rhea is aggressive until she lays her egg because she sees you as a threat. So is this bird aggressive because it needs to get laid? Is that what I'm hearing right? Because I completely understand that. Completely. I've said too much. Moving on. The fight did not deter Miss Waddington from returning a few days later to help Jackie clean the pair of Rheas out again. Miss Waddington said, I've always been around animals because we lived on a farm from being so little, blah, 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 blah. They're unusual animals. A horse is my favorite. I'd much rather stick with them. Horses can kill you too. Like, horses just have to step on you. But like these birds, they can. All right, so what are Rheas? They're giant flightless birds, originally from South America. They have 6-inch claws and could kill with a single blow. They have 3 toes on each foot instead of 4, which is believed to help them run faster. Less toes means you run faster. I didn't know that. Farmers in the native South America consider the gigantic birds pests because they eat their crops. Also, they kill people. The animals have a distinctive cry, which sounds more like a big cat's roar than a bird call. Rheas are farmed for their meat, which is low in cholesterol, and the birds are polygamous, which means the males incubate up to 60 eggs laid by a means the males incubate up to 60 eggs laid by as many as 12 mates in a single nest. Wow. The thought of getting laid by as many as 12 mates is mildly appealing. The rest of the story, however, incredibly scary. All right, moving on to New Jersey. All right, so the first one, dog likely attacked by hawk in Aberdeen, vet says. The Samoyed was brought in with puncture wounds consistent with being grabbed by a hawk. A similar incident may have happened in Middleton. Aberdeen, New Jersey. A veterinary... This is from Patch.com, and it's written by Carly Baldwin. Thank you, Carly. A veterinary office in Englishtown said that they strongly suspect a dog they treated this week was attacked in its Aberdeen backyard by a hawk. This comes the same week as Aberdeen Township posted a Facebook message warning residents to be alert about hawks attacking dogs from backyards. Who could have seen this coming? The dog, an adult Samoyed, was treated at County Animal Clinic in Englishtown. Patch called the vet clinic for more information, but they said they don't want to release more details than what they posted on Facebook in the interest of protecting the privacy of the dog's owners. But the office manager did say that the fully grown adult Samoyed was brought in with piercings and puncture wounds consistent with being grabbed by a hawk, bald eagle, or other bird of prey. She said the dog was alone in the backyard where it was pretty much just left to be lunch. That's not what they said. I may be editorializing here. The office manager said she also heard of a similar incident in Middletown last week as well, where a dog was attacked by a bird of prey in the backyard because birds are hungry because we're not giving up our French fries. They are our French fries, damn it. The birds do not get them. The birds do not get the French fries. We have the French fries. They can hate us all they want. Anyway, and a fully grown adult Samoyed weighs about 50 pounds. Blah, 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 and blah. All right, so in England, bird attacks and tries to kill a human. In New Jersey, bird attacks and tries to kill dog. Also in New Jersey, man kills man over birds. All right, so this one is fucked up. Forgive my French. Forgive my fucking French. This is from NJ.com. Did dispute over pigeons lead to murder of popular coach? Now, this was just posted today, actually. In fact, it looks like it was just posted a couple hours ago, 5:56 p.m. I just found it while doing prep for the show. Jersey City. This is written by Caitlin Moda for the Jersey Journal. The death of a popular baseball coach may have been the result of an argument about whether or not residents should feed the birds in Pershing Field, according to court testimony. Charles Lowy, age 68, is charged with murder for allegedly stabbing Anthony Bello, age 77, twice in the chest on April 15th. Officials say one of the stab wounds pierced the retired teacher's lung, causing his death. Wait a minute! So, these two old dudes, because I'm sorry, 68 and 77 is old, are having a knife fight because the one dude wants to feed birds. Now, feeding birds is never a good idea, because if you feed birds, they live longer. If they live longer, they can attack you and gut you, like this bird tried to do in England. So feeding birds, never a good idea. But I'm not about to stab somebody over it. Apparently, Charles Lowy, according to court documents, was about to stab somebody over it. During a Monday detention hearing that spanned nearly 90 minutes, Deputy Public Defender Joseph Russo argued the stabbing was out of self-defense. He was trying to defend himself from the birds, and Bello was the aggressor in the case. His motion to have Lowy, who suffers from severe spinal stenosis, released pending his trial was rejected by Superior Court Judge Paul de Pascal. Lowy was described by his attorney as the Birdman of Pershing Field. Every day he would fill a small bag of bird food, walk to the park, which is less than a block from his home, and spread the food in a circle around him for the pigeons to eat. But something went wrong during an early morning confrontation between the two men. According to one witness interviewed by the Hudson County Prosecutor's Office, he saw two old guys roughing it up on the grass at around 8 a.m. At one point, Bello had his arm around Lowy's neck and was yelling for someone to call 911 because he was carrying a knife. Russo said during the hearing that Bello had previously threatened to file a complaint against Lowy for feeding the birds in the park. Following his death, Bello's neighbors told the Jersey Journal he hated the park pigeons. Look, dude, I don't blame you. All right, I hate pigeons too, but I am not about to stab somebody over it. That's too much. All right, there's lines, And there are lines that you should not cross. Stabbing someone over pigeons, that's too much. All right? I understand that maybe you didn't see the line, but you definitely crossed it. And assuming, of course, this is all alleged, of course, right? Assuming that he actually did this, that's wrong. You can't stab somebody because they're feeding birds. Assistant prosecutor, by the way, there's no real good reason to stab somebody. Just to throw that out there. Unless they're trying to stab you, and then you can stab them. Right? I think that's how that works. But not because they're feeding birds. Back to the story. Assistant prosecutor Keith Travers said the clothing and jewelry were the clothing and jewelry. They didn't mention clothing and jewelry before. Oh yeah, they did. Hold on. Never mind. Another apparent witness who was only I missed a paragraph. Another apparent witness who was only identified as a dog walker in the park told a second man interviewed by authorities that the two men were arguing about Lowy feeding the birds. The witness has not given a statement to police. Those who did not provide statements, however, described the suspect of the attack as having hand tattoos and wearing a red hoodie, blue jeans, and skull rings. Dude, that's pretty badass for a 68-year-old. Whatever. A small pocket knife was said to be the weapon used in the stabbing. Assistant prosecutor Keith Travers said the clothing and jewelry were found in Lowy's room when he was arrested. A pocket knife with blood stains was also recovered, and testing is being done to confirm if it was the blade used in Bellows' killing. Travers showed pictures of Bellows' hands after he died, pointing that there was no indication he had punched or attacked Lowy first. Despite Lowy's attorney describing him as a deeply religious and peaceful person with no criminal record whatsoever, DePascal denied a request for release on house arrest. How does a 68-year-old get tattoos and skull rings? That part I'm a little confused about. Anyway, Russo said he will discuss with Lowy the possibilities of appealing the pre-trial detention. Okay. So that story's interesting. Hey, kids, don't stab people over birds. That's wrong. That's not good. You should not do that. Anyway. Okay, so I'm out of material. And we're ending just a little bit early, and I apologize about that. Not really. The show never actually goes till 8 anyway, but we end it when we have to. And apparently right now we have to end it because I'm out of things to talk about. But I will be back next week right here live at 8 p.m. on All Western New York Radio, allwnyradio.com, listen.allwnyradio.com, on the All Western New York News and Radio app, on the podcast whenever you have the opportunity to catch it. We're all over the streets like your favorite sneaker. All right, and you can catch us when you catch us. On the flip side, if you need to, if you missed any part of today's show or you want to listen to the interview with Mike again, in which, by the way, this part's really, I was surprised to hear him say he did not regret working for Boris Yeltsin, but he might have regretted working for Donald Trump. If nobody caught that part of the interview, I found that particularly interesting. So yeah, there's that. I don't even know what to do with that, but interesting nonetheless. Nonetheless. Also, while I was talking about the bird war, Mike did respond to me on Facebook about the whole Twitter thing, because I'd said that I'd heard that Twitter took it down, and I said that I had seen that he took it down. He says that he took it down, and here's his quote. He says, "I'm tired of the death threats, and I've got other plans for the account. I deleted all tweets but 2. Look, so as I mentioned earlier, Mike and I come from different political spectrums. Not entirely. I mean, we do agree on certain things, and one of the things that I like about Mike is he doesn't toe the party line on everything. Just like neither do I, because I'm a man without a party, so you know whatever. I'm a libertarian. I'm a registered libertarian, but I don't even believe everything they say because I feel like they're crazy too. But anyway, so apparently Mike took his Twitter down, so that's good to know. I was unaware of that. But again, thanks to him for being on, and thanks to you for listening. Now, if you want to let me know that you liked it, please do so. Tweet me at Scott Leffler. If you want to let me know that you hated it, please do so. Tweet me at Scott Leffler. If you want to ask me out for chicken wings and beer, please tweet me at Scott Leffler. If you want to hit me with a shovel, stay away from me. I don't need people like you in my life. I'm done with that chapter of my life. Violent, ugly people. I don't need. Anyway, I'm going to sign off now. But I'll be back next Monday. We'll have another interesting guest. We'll do something more fun. Until then, I've been Scott Leffler. You've been listening to Here's the Thing on All West New York Radio. Have a wonderful day. Peace!